The night Dante Romano cornered me in that corridor, my entire world shifted. He didn't ask permission before his fingers grazed my skin. He didn't pause. His hand closed around my throat like he'd been counting down the days to do it. My father's right hand wasn't meant to watch me that way, but he did. Deliberate, burning like I was already his, and he had finally chosen to claim it. He branded me that evening, not with a ring, but with a presence I can't shake. And now, there's nowhere to run from him. This happened in a place where control isn't granted. It's seized, and Dante seized me without uttering a single word. If you're listening right now, help me prove someone wrong. My best friend said I wouldn't even reach 800 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tailies matter. Please subscribe to Daisy's Romance Stories, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. I never intended to return to Boston. Not after everything that went down when I was 19. Not after my father, Marcus Valentino, yanked me from university and informed me I needed to vanish for a stretch. That's the word he used, vanish. As if I were a complication he needed to bury quietly. He shipped me off to my grandmother's estate in Vermont for 2 years. 24 months of radio silence. 24 months of pretending I didn't have a father who controlled half the illegal operations on the East Coast. 24 months of fabricating stories when people asked about my origins. But my mother collapsed. Stage 4 metastatic. The kind of prognosis that forces you to abandon everything and rush home, regardless of how long you've been running. So I returned. And the first person standing in the entrance when I stepped through those doors wasn't my father. It was Dante, positioned in the marble foyer like he'd been anticipating my arrival. 6'3", shoulders like a linebacker, dark hair trimmed military short, eyes the shade of obsidian, piercing and relentless. He didn't offer a greeting. He didn't shift an inch. He simply observed me drag my luggage inside, and I swear I felt his stare like fingertips tracing down my vertebrae. I hadn't laid eyes on him in 2 years, but I remembered him. Everyone remembered Dante Romano. He wasn't merely my father's enforcer. He was the enforcer. The one people discussed in hushed tones behind closed doors. The one who made complications evaporate. The one who never elevated his voice because intimidation came naturally. I'd noticed him around the mansion before my departure. Always lurking in corners, always observing, always silent. But I never truly studied him, not the way I should have. Now, standing in that foyer at 21, I couldn't tear my gaze away. And judging by the intensity radiating from him, neither could he. I didn't anticipate anyone in the corridor that evening. It was late, approaching 1 in the morning. The mansion was hushed except for muffled voices drifting from my father's study on the ground floor. Sleep wouldn't come. My mother had been suffering all day, and the hospice nurse warned it would deteriorate before any improvement. I kept seeing her expression replaying endlessly. The forced smile when I delivered her medication. The tremor in her fingers when she gripped the glass. So I climbed out of bed. I tugged on an oversized hoodie over my camisole and wandered into the shadowed hallway, desperate to move, desperate to fill my lungs with air. That's when I rounded the corner and collided directly into a wall of muscle. I inhaled sharply, staggering backward. His hands caught my shoulders, stabilizing me. I glanced upward. Dante. He materialized from the darkness, dressed in black denim and a fitted charcoal Henley that emphasized every contour across his chest. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes weren't. They were molten, concentrated entirely on me. "You shouldn't wander around unaccompanied," he murmured. His voice carried a gravelly texture, dangerous and low. I attempted to create distance, but his hands lingered on my shoulders momentarily. His hold was firm, commanding, but not painful. Just certain, like he understood precisely what he was orchestrating. I couldn't sleep. I managed, my voice unsteady. He angled his head slightly, examining me. "Your father has security monitoring every entrance. You're protected." "I'm aware." "Then why are you awake?" I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. Because protected doesn't equal fine. Something flickered across his features. His jaw hardened. His hands finally released my shoulders, but he didn't retreat. He remained oppressively close. Too close, and I could sense the warmth emanating from his body. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. "This is my home." "Not anymore." The statement pierced deeper than it should have because he was accurate. I fled. I remained absent for 2 years, and now I'd returned and everything felt foreign, like I was a visitor in a place that once belonged to me. I looked down, attempting to compose myself. That's when his hand moved, slowly, purposefully. His fingers grazed against my wrist, then encircled it gently. Not yanking, not restraining, just touching. My breath seized in my chest. I looked up at him, pulse thundering. His thumb traced over my racing heartbeat, and I knew he could detect how frantically it pounded. "Dante." "Someone's been tracking you," he interrupted, his tone hushed but razor-sharp. "Outside the hospital, near the estate, I've identified the same vehicle 4 times in the past week." My stomach plummeted. "What are you talking about?" "Your father remains unaware, but I'm informing you now." His grip intensified fractionally. "You don't travel anywhere alone. You don't depart without me. Clear." I wanted to protest. I wanted to wrench my hand free and declare I didn't require a bodyguard. But the way he studied me rendered the words impossible because it transcended protection. It was possession, like he'd already determined I was his charge, and nothing I articulated would alter it. "Why do you care?" I whispered. His gaze dropped to my mouth for a fraction of a second. Then he leaned closer, near enough that I could feel his breath against my neck. "Because you're mine to guard." The declaration sent electricity down my spine. He released my wrist gradually, his fingers dragging across my skin as he withdrew. Then he stepped backward into the shadows, his focus never wavering from me. "Return to bed, Alesha." I remained frozen, rooted to that spot, my wrist still burning where he'd touched me. Then I pivoted and walked back to my bedroom on trembling legs. And I understood, deep in my core, that something had fundamentally shifted between us, something irreversible. If you're still watching, leave a comment and tell me. Have you ever experienced someone looking at you like you already belong to them? Because that's what Dante did, and I couldn't determine if I should escape or surrender to being caught. The following morning, I awakened to sunlight filtering through the drapes and distant murmurs from downstairs. I dressed quickly, dark jeans, a cream silk blouse, ankle boots, and secured my hair in a careless ponytail. When I entered the kitchen, my father had already departed, but Dante was there, leaning against the granite island with a mug of black espresso in his hand, scrolling through his device with concentrated intensity. He glanced up when I appeared. "Morning," he stated simply. I hesitated in the doorway. "Morning." He placed his phone aside and slid a second cup of espresso across the counter toward me. I blinked. "You made me coffee." "You drink it with cream, no sugar." My heart performed a strange flutter because he was correct, and the fact that he'd remembered made my chest constrict. I approached slowly and lifted the cup, wrapping my palms around the heated porcelain. "Thanks." He nodded, observing me over the rim of his own cup. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Your father wants you confined to the property for the foreseeable future." I frowned. "Why?" "Because I informed him what I disclosed last night, about the vehicle." "Right." I set my cup down, frustration swelling in my chest. "I can't just remain imprisoned here, Dante. My mom requires supplies. I need to visit the pharmacy, the hospital." "I'll escort you." I froze. "What?" He straightened, crossing his arms over his chest. "Anywhere you need to go, I'll accompany you. You don't leave without me." "That's absurd." "That's reality." His voice remained calm, but absolute authority resonated in it. I stared at him, my hands curling into fists. "You can't simply decide that." "I already have." The atmosphere between us felt dense, electric. He advanced closer, his gaze steady and immovable. "You can resent me however much you want, Alesha, but I'm not permitting anything to harm you." "Why?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Why do you even care this intensely?" His jaw clenched. For a second, I thought he wouldn't respond. Then he said quietly, "Because the first time I truly noticed you, you returned from university for Thanksgiving. You were standing in the gardens outside this mansion, laughing on the phone with someone. Your hair was catching the autumn light and you looked joyful, liberated. And I thought," he paused, "I thought I'd do anything to preserve that." My breath caught. "That was 2 years ago." "I know. You barely knew me." "Didn't matter." The confession hung between us like something tangible. I didn't know how to respond. He didn't look away, didn't retract it, just stood there, close enough that I could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the measured rise and fall of his chest with each breath. I should have been angry. I should have told him that was excessive, that he hardly knew me then. But all I felt was heat spreading through my chest, my stomach, my skin. "You've been watching me," I whispered. "Every day you were gone." My pulse roared in my ears. "Why didn't you say something?" His gaze dropped to my lips. "Because you weren't ready." "And now?" He leaned in fractionally, just enough that I could feel the magnetic pull between us like gravity. "Now you're here, and I'm not letting you disappear again." I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing emerged. He stepped back, fracturing the moment. "Get your things. We're departing in 10 minutes." Then he walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there with my heart racing and my mind spiraling. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to run from him. I wanted to discover what would happen if I stayed. The following days unfolded in a strange, tense cadence. Dante drove me everywhere, to the hospital to sit with my mother, to the pharmacy to collect her prescriptions, to the small French patisserie downtown where she adored their lavender macarons. He never complained, never questioned my decisions. Just opened the car door for me, positioned himself 3 steps behind in every establishment, and waited with his arms folded while I selected items I hoped might coax a smile from her. And every single time I glanced backward at him, he was watching me, not surveying the room, not monitoring the other patrons. Me. It should have unsettled me, but it didn't. It made me feel visible, like I mattered in a way I hadn't experienced in years. One evening, insomnia claimed me again. I crept downstairs around 3 a.m, intending to brew chamomile tea and exist in the darkness for a while. But when I entered the kitchen, the pendant light was already illuminated. And Dante was there, seated at the small corner table with a tumbler of bourbon in his hand, staring at absolutely nothing. He looked up when I appeared. "Can't sleep?" he asked. I shook my head. "You never do." I crossed to the stove and ignited the burner, my hands trembling slightly. "You should try," I said softly. "Sleep, I mean. Doesn't come naturally for men like me." I pivoted to face him. "Why not?" He took a measured sip of his drink, his eyes shadowed and exhausted. "Because when I close my eyes, I see things I'd rather forget." My chest tightened. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I simply remained there, observing him until the kettle began to shriek. I poured myself a cup of peppermint tea and approached the table. I settled into the chair across from him. For an extended moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "Thank you." He frowned slightly. "For what?" "For being present, for assisting with my mother, for driving me everywhere. I trailed off, uncertain how to complete the sentence. "For watching you," he finished quietly. I met his gaze. "Yes." His expression softened marginally. "You don't need to thank me for that." "Why do you do it?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Truly, why do you care this profoundly?" He placed his glass down and reclined in his chair, studying me. "You want honesty." "Always." He remained silent for a protracted moment. Then he said, "Because from the instant you walked back through those doors, something inside me realigned. I'd seen you before, certainly, but witnessing you again, older, more resilient, trying so desperately to hold everything together for your mother." He paused. "I knew I couldn't permit anyone to harm you, and I knew I didn't want to release you." My breath stalled. "Dante." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his gaze locked with mine. You think I'm unhinged. I understand that, but I won't apologize for it. I shook my head. I don't think you're unhinged. His eyes searched mine. Then what do you think? I inhaled shakily. I think I feel it too. The words suspended in the air between us. His jaw tightened. Alesha. I do, I whispered. I've felt it since I returned to this house. Perhaps it originated before. I don't know, but it's there, and I don't know what to do about it. He rose slowly, his chair scraping against the tile. Then he circled the table and stopped directly before me. I looked up at him, my heart hammering violently. He extended his hand and cupped my jaw gently, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. You don't have to do anything, he said softly. Just don't run from me. I leaned into his touch instinctively. I won't. His eyes darkened, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. But he didn't. He simply stood there, cradling my face like I was something fragile and precious. Then he whispered, Go to bed, Alesha. I stood gradually, my legs unsteady, and as I departed the kitchen, I felt his gaze following me the entire distance. Are you still with me? Because this is where complications multiply. Drop a comment if you think Alesha should let Dante in, or if she should protect her heart before it's too late. 3 days later, everything disintegrated. I was upstairs with my mother, reading to her from one of her beloved poetry collections, when I heard shouting erupting from below. My father's voice, Dante's voice, and someone else I didn't recognize. My mother squeezed my hand weakly. Go investigate, she whispered. I didn't want to abandon her, but the shouting intensified, and I couldn't disregard it. I kissed her forehead and stepped into the hallway, my heart pounding. When I reached the top of the grand staircase, I froze. 4 men stood in the foyer. My father occupied the center, his face crimson, his fists clenched. Dante stood to his right, his expression glacial and lethal, and across from them stood a man I'd never encountered before. Tall, angular, with slicked platinum hair and an expensive charcoal suit. You don't get to issue ultimatums in my residence, my father snarled. The man smiled. I'm not issuing ultimatums, Marcus. I'm presenting an opportunity. An opportunity to take my daughter. My stomach plummeted. She's irrelevant to this, my father continued, his voice quaking with fury. She has zero involvement in my operations. She has everything to do with it, the man said smoothly. You owe me $3 million. I'll accept her as collateral until you settle the debt. Dante moved with lightning speed. He seized the man by the collar and drove him against the wall so forcefully the chandelier trembled. You're not touching her, Dante said, his voice lethally quiet. The man choked, his hands clawing at Dante's grip. Release him, my father commanded sharply. Dante didn't budge. Dante, my father repeated, release him. Slowly, Dante complied. The man stumbled forward, gasping. He straightened his suit and glared at Dante. You just committed a grave error. Then he departed, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the windows. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father turned and noticed me standing on the stairs, his face drained of color. Alesha. Who was that? I demanded, my voice shaking. Nobody. Return upstairs. Don't lie to me. Dante looked up at me, his expression rigid. Go, he said quietly. Now. But I didn't move. Is someone attempting to take me? My father closed his eyes. It's handled. That's not an answer. Alesha. Tell me the truth. Dante's jaw clenched. Then he said, yes, he wants you, and no, we're not permitting that to happen. My father shot him a warning look, but Dante ignored him, his eyes locked on mine. You're not leaving this property without me anymore, not even to visit the hospital. Understood. I wanted to argue, but the fear radiating from his eyes stopped me. Okay, I whispered. He nodded once, then he turned to my father. I'm relocating her to the West Wing, closer to my quarters. Dante. It's not negotiable. My father stared at him for an extended moment. Then he exhaled. "Fine, do it." Dante looked back at me. "Pack your belongings." Then he ascended past me, his shoulder grazing mine as he went. And I realized something terrifying. Dante wasn't merely protecting me, he was claiming me, and my father was permitting it. Tell me, would you trust Dante to keep you safe? Or would you attempt to flee? Because Alesha's about to discover she can't do either. I relocated to the West Wing that evening. It was a more secluded section of the mansion, quieter, with only 4 bedrooms. Mine was positioned at the corridor's end. Dante's was immediately adjacent. He didn't speak much as he assisted me transporting my belongings. Just moved efficiently, his expression hardened and focused. When everything was unpacked, he stood in the doorway, his arms crossed. "Lock your door nightly," he said. "Okay. If you hear anything, you contact me. I'll be right here." "I know." He hesitated, then he said, "I apologize." I blinked. "For what?" "For this, for making you feel imprisoned." I shook my head. "You're keeping me safe." "Doesn't mean I appreciate it." He turned to depart. "Dante." He stopped, looking back at me. "Thank you." His expression softened. "Get some rest, Alesha." Then he exited, closing the door behind him. I sat on the bed's edge, my hands trembling, and for the first time in days, I permitted myself to cry. 4 nights later, it occurred. I awakened to the sound of shattering glass. My heart launched into my throat. I bolted upright, my breath accelerating. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, rapid, approaching down the hallway. I leaped from bed and sprinted to the door, engaging the lock just as someone collided with it from the opposite side. I screamed. "Alesha," Dante's voice, "I'm here." "The door," I shouted. "Get away from it." I stumbled backward just as the door exploded inward. Dante burst through, his weapon drawn, his eyes wild. Behind him, I could hear additional footsteps, more shouting. He grabbed my arm and pulled me behind him. "Stay close," he said, his voice deadly calm. We moved rapidly down the hallway, down the service staircase. Gunshots reverberated through the house. I flinched, my hands clutching Dante's shirt. He kicked open a side door and pulled me outside into the frigid night air. A black Escalade was waiting. He shoved me into the rear seat and climbed in after me, slamming the door. "Drive," he barked at the driver. The vehicle peeled from the driveway, tires screeching. I was trembling so violently I couldn't breathe. Dante pulled me against his chest, his arms enveloping me tightly. "It's okay," he said, his voice rough. "You're okay, I have you." "What's happening?" I gasped. "They came for you, but they didn't succeed." "Who?" "It's irrelevant. You're safe now." I buried my face in his chest, tears streaming down my cheeks. He held me tighter, his hand running through my hair. "I'm not letting anyone take you," he whispered. "You hear me, you're mine, and I protect what's mine." I nodded against him, unable to articulate words. And in that moment, I stopped resisting, because I didn't want to be anywhere else. I wanted to be precisely where I was in his arms. Are you still listening? Because this is where everything transforms. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Alesha's safe now, or is this just the beginning? We drove for hours. Dante didn't disclose our destination, just held me in the back seat, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning the road behind us constantly. Eventually, we arrived at a small cottage on the city's outskirts, isolated, concealed, secure. Dante helped me from the vehicle and guided me inside. The cottage was modest, clean, silent. "We'll remain here until your father resolves this," Dante said. I nodded, still shaking. He led me to the bedroom and sat me on the bed's edge. Then he knelt before me, his hands on my knees. "Look at me," he said softly. I did. His eyes were fierce, protective, and something else I couldn't identify. You're not going anywhere without me," Dante finished, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Not until this is finished. Not until I know you're completely safe. I nodded, unable to form words. My entire body was still trembling from the adrenaline, from the fear, from the reality that someone had actually broken into my father's mansion with the explicit intention of taking me. Dante's thumbs traced gentle circles on my knees, a stark contrast to the hardness in his eyes. I need you to understand something, Alesha. This isn't just about your father's dead anymore. This is about you, about what you mean to, he stopped himself, his jaw working, about keeping you alive. What do I mean to you? I whispered. He stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked uncertain, vulnerable even. Everything, he finally said, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. You mean everything. Before I could respond, he walked out of the room, closing the door gently behind him. I sat there on the unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar house, my heart racing for entirely different reasons now. Because Dante Romano, the most dangerous man I'd ever known, had just confessed that I meant everything to him. And the terrifying part, I felt exactly the same way. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My best friend said I wouldn't even reach 800 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to Daisy's Romance Stories, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through sheer curtains and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere in the cottage. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then everything came rushing back, the breaking glass, the gunshots, the desperate escape in the middle of the night. I climbed out of bed and realized I was still wearing the same sleep shorts and oversized t-shirt from the night before. My feet were bare against the cool wooden floor as I padded out into the hallway. The cottage was small but beautifully maintained. Exposed beams crossed the ceiling, and morning light painted everything in shades of gold. I followed the coffee sent to a compact kitchen where Dante stood at the counter, his back to me, pouring dark liquid into 2 mugs. He'd changed into fresh clothes, dark jeans and a fitted black Henley that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. His hair was damp, like he'd recently showered. "Morning," I said softly. He turned, and his eyes swept over me in a way that made my skin flush. "Morning, how'd you sleep?" "Better than I expected, honestly." He handed me one of the mugs. Cream, no sugar. I accepted it with a small smile. "You remember." "I remember everything about you, Alesha." The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. I took a sip of coffee to avoid responding, letting the warmth spread through my chest. "Where are we exactly?" I asked. "About 40 miles outside Boston. This place belongs to a friend who owes me a favor. No one knows about it except him, and he's currently in Europe. We're safe here." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Your father's meeting with the Cosa Nostra Council today. They'll mediate the situation with Salvatore." "Salvatore, that's his name, the man who wants to take me." Dante's expression darkened. "Salvatore Marchetti. He runs the Providence operation. Your father borrowed money from him 2 years ago to expand into New Jersey. The terms were clear, but Salvatore's decided to renegotiate. By demanding me as payment. He won't get you." The absolute certainty in his voice sent shivers down my spine. "Dante, what if my father can't pay him back? What if—" "Then I'll handle it." "What does that mean?" He pushed off the counter and closed the distance between us in 2 strides. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. "It means I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Whatever it takes, Alesha. Do you understand?" I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "Good." He dropped his hand but didn't step back. "There's food in the fridge. Help yourself to whatever you want. I need to make some calls, but I'll be right outside if you need me." "Okay." He studied me for another moment, as if memorizing my features, then turned and walked toward the front door. "Dante." He paused, looking back. "Thank you for everything." Something softened in his expression. "You don't need to keep thanking me. Protecting you isn't a burden, Alesha. It's a privilege." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the kitchen with my heart pounding and my mind spinning. I spent the morning exploring the small cottage, trying to distract myself from the anxiety gnawing at my insides. There were 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a cozy living room with a stone fireplace, and the kitchen. Everything was tastefully decorated in neutral tones with touches of rustic charm. Through the window, I could see Dante packing in the yard, his phone pressed to his ear. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the hard set of his jaw. I made myself some toast I barely touched and tried to read a book I found on the shelf, but I couldn't focus. Every few minutes, my gaze drifted back to the window, back to Dante. Around noon, he came back inside. His expression was grim. "What happened?" I asked immediately. He sank onto the couch, rubbing his face with both hands. "The council meeting didn't go as planned. Salvator's refusing to negotiate. He wants you, and he's threatening war if your father doesn't comply." My blood ran cold. War. A conflict between families. It would be bloody, expensive, and ultimately pointless. Your father's trying to find another solution, but Salvator's being stubborn. "Why me specifically? Why does he want me?" Dante's jaw clenched. "Because you're Marcus Valentino's only daughter, his weakness. Taking you would give Salvator leverage over your father for life. Plus," he stopped abruptly. "Plus what?" He looked at me, something dark and possessive flashing in his eyes. "Plus you're beautiful, intelligent, and from a powerful family. Men like Salvator collect things. People. You'd be a trophy to him." Rage bubbled up inside me. "I'm not a thing to be collected." "I know that." Dante stood and crossed to where I sat on the arm of a chair. "And I'll die before I let him treat you like one." "You can't die for me, Dante." "Yes, I can, and I will if it comes to that." "No." He cupped my face with both hands, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Listen to me. I've done terrible things in my life, Alesha, things I can never take back or make right, but keeping you safe, protecting you, that's the first good thing I've done in years, maybe ever. So don't ask me to stop. Don't ask me to let you go, because I won't. I can't." Tears blurred my vision. "I don't want you to let me go." His eyes searched mine. "What do you want?" "You," I whispered. "I want you." The air between us electrified. His gaze dropped to my lips, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he closed the distance and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, consuming, like he'd been holding back for months, years maybe, and finally let himself break. His hands slid into my hair, angling my head as he deepened the kiss. I gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, needing to feel him, to know this was real. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you walked back into that house," he said roughly. "Why didn't you?" "Because you deserved better than a man like me. You still do." I shook my head. "I don't want better, I want you." He rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed. "You have no idea what you're saying." "Yes, I do. I know exactly who you are, Dante, what you do, what you've done, and I don't care. Because I also know that you're the only person who's ever made me feel this safe, this seen, this," I struggled for the word, "this cherished." His arms came around me, pulling me flush against him. "You are cherished, you're everything." We stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the rest of the world forgotten. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He cursed under his breath and pulled it from his pocket, checking the screen. "It's your father." He answered, putting it on speaker. "Marcus." "Dante, we have a problem." My father's voice was strained, urgent. "Salvator's made his move. He's taken Alina." My heart stopped. Alina was my mother's nurse, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been helping care for her for months. "When?" Dante demanded. "An hour ago. He grabbed her from the hospital parking lot, left a message saying he'll trade her for Alesha." "Absolutely not," Dante said immediately. "I know that, but we need to act fast. He's given us 24 hours. I grabbed Dante's arm. We can't let him hurt her because of me. We won't, Dante said firmly. Then to my father, where does he want the exchange? The old textile factory in Providence. Midnight tomorrow. It's a trap. Obviously, but we don't have a choice. We need to get Alina back. Dante's jaw worked. I'll handle it. Dante. I said I'll handle it, Marcus. Keep Alesha's location secure. No one can know where she is. Understood. Understood. Be careful. Dante ended the call and immediately started packing. I could see his mind working, calculating, planning. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. I'm going to get Alina back. How? He looked at me, his eyes hard. By giving Salvator what he thinks he wants. My stomach dropped. No, absolutely not. You're not using me as bait. I'm not letting you anywhere near that factory, but Salvator doesn't know that. He pulled out his phone again, typing rapidly. I have a friend, someone who owes me. She looks enough like you from a distance, with the right clothes, right hair in the dark. You're going to use a decoy. Yes, we'll set up the exchange, make Salvator think he's getting you. The moment Alina's safe, my team moves in. Your team. I don't work alone, Alesha. I have people, good people who are loyal to me, not your father. They'll help. I wanted to argue, to insist there had to be another way. But looking at Dante's face, I knew he'd already made up his mind. And truthfully, I couldn't think of a better plan. What do I do? I asked. You stay here, you stay safe, and you trust me. I do trust you. He crossed to me and pulled me into his arms again. This will work. I promise you this will work. I buried my face in his chest, breathing in his scent, coffee and cedar and something uniquely him. You have to come back to me. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. Dante left that afternoon to coordinate with his team, leaving me alone in the cottage with strict instructions not to leave, not to answer the door for anyone, and to call him immediately if anything seemed off. I tried to stay busy. I cleaned the already clean cottage. I attempted to read. I made food I couldn't eat. Every few hours, Dante would text me an update. Team assembled. Plan in motion, everything on schedule. But as midnight approached, the text stopped. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the clock tick closer and closer to the exchange time. My phone sat on the coffee table in front of me, silent. Midnight came and went. No word from Dante. 12:30 a.m. nothing. 1:00 a.m. still nothing. By 1:30 a.m., I was packing the living room, my anxiety reaching a fever pitch. What if something had gone wrong? What if Salvator had figured out the plan? What if Dante was hurt, or worse? At 2:00 a.m., I heard a car approaching. My heart leaped into my throat. I rushed to the window, peering through the curtains. A black SUV pulled up to the cottage, and my breath caught when I saw Dante climb out of the driver's seat. He looked exhausted but unharmed. And he wasn't alone. Alina was with him, wrapped in a blanket, being helped from the vehicle by another man I didn't recognize. I flung open the door and ran outside. Dante caught me as I threw myself into his arms. You're okay, I breathed. You're okay. I told you I'd come back. His arms tightened around me. Alina's safe. Salvator's in custody. The FBI's had a case building against him for months. We just gave them the evidence they needed. I pulled back to look at him. The FBI. Turns out your father's been cooperating with them for the past year, trying to get out of the life. Taking down Salvator was part of the deal. My mind reeled. My father's working with the FBI. It's complicated. I'll explain everything, but first, he cupped my face. First, I need you to know that you're safe now, truly safe. Salvator's going away for a very long time, and with him gone, the debt's dissolved. You can go home. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt a pang of something like loss. And you, what happens to you? His expression softened. That depends on you. On me. I meant what I said, Alesha. You're everything to me. So if you want me to walk away, let you live your life without this darkness, I will. But if you want me to stay, he paused, vulnerability flickering across his features. If you want me to stay, I'm yours, completely, for as long as you'll have me. I didn't hesitate. I pulled him down and kissed him, pouring every ounce of emotion into it. The fear, the relief, the overwhelming love I'd been too afraid to name until now. When we broke apart, I whispered against his lips, "Stay. I want you to stay." His answer was another kiss, deeper this time, full of promise. And as the first light of dawn began to paint the sky, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. We returned to Boston 3 days later. My father's mansion felt different somehow, lighter, as if Salvatier's threat had been a physical weight pressing down on the estate. The FBI had dismantled his entire operation in Providence, and several other families had been caught in the fallout. My father was cooperating fully now, providing testimony that would reshape the entire northeastern criminal landscape. My mother's condition had stabilized, though the doctors warned us it was temporary. She had weeks, maybe months, but she was lucid when I visited her that first day back, and when she saw Dante standing in the doorway behind me, she smiled. "So you finally stopped pretending," she said, her voice weak but warm. I blinked. "What?" "That you don't care about each other. I've seen the way he looks at you, sweetheart, even 2 years ago before you left." She reached out her frail hand toward Dante. "Come here, young man." Dante approached, and to my surprise, he took her hand gently in his. "You protect my daughter," she said. It wasn't a question. "With my life," he replied. "Good, because she's going to need you. What's coming next won't be easy." Her eyes shifted to me. "Your father's testimony is going to make a lot of powerful people very angry. Some of them will want revenge." My stomach tightened. "Mom." "I'm not trying to scare you, baby. I'm trying to prepare you. Marcus is doing the right thing finally, but there are consequences. You need to be ready." Dante squeezed her hand. "I won't let anyone hurt her." "I know you won't." She smiled at him, then at me. "I can rest easier knowing that." After we left her room, I felt shaken. Dante must have sensed it because he pulled me into an empty corridor and wrapped his arms around me. "We'll handle whatever comes," he murmured into my hair. "Together." I nodded against his chest, trying to believe him. The next 2 weeks fell into a new rhythm. Dante moved into the guest house on the property, close enough to be nearby, but far enough to maintain some propriety. My father had raised an eyebrow at the arrangement, but hadn't objected. I think he recognized that Dante and I were inevitable at this point. I spent my mornings with my mother, reading to her, talking about memories, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence while she slept. My afternoons were split between managing her care and spending time with Dante. We'd take walks through the estate gardens, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his childhood in Naples, how his family had emigrated when he was 12, how his father had worked for my father and been killed in a territory dispute when Dante was 17, how my father had taken him in, trained him, shaped him into the enforcer he'd become. "I owe Marcus everything," Dante admitted one afternoon as we sat by the fountain. "My education, my skills, my position, everything I am is because of him." "Is that why you stayed?" I asked. "Out of loyalty?" "Partially, but also because I didn't know anything else. This life, it's all I've ever known. Until you came back, I never questioned whether I wanted something different. And now..." He turned to look at me, his dark eyes intense. "Now I want options I never thought I could have. A life that isn't just violence and shadows. Maybe even..." He stopped, shaking his head. "Maybe even what?" "Something normal, a home, a family." He laughed, but it sounded bitter. "Ridiculous, right? A man like me thinking about things like that." I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. "It's not ridiculous. Everyone deserves a chance at happiness, Dante, even you." He brought my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles. "You make me believe that might actually be true." But happiness, I was learning, was fragile in our world. It started with small things. A car following us that Dante's security team couldn't identify. Strange phone calls to the main house that disconnected when answered. my father increasing security protocols, though he insisted everything was fine. Then, 3 weeks after Salvador's arrest, Dante came to find me in my mother's room. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Can I speak with you?" he asked quietly. "It's important." I excused myself from my mother's bedside and followed him into the hallway. He led me to my father's study, where my father sat behind his massive desk, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Sit down, sweetheart," my father said. The formality in his tone made my pulse spike. I sat in one of the leather chairs across from the desk. Dante remained standing behind me, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. "What's going on?" I asked. My father exchanged a glance with Dante, then sighed heavily. "The FBI contacted me this morning. There's been a development with the Marchetti case." "What kind of development?" "Salvador had a brother. Younger, smarter, and significantly more dangerous. His name is Christian Marchetti, and he's been operating the European branches of the family business from London for the past 5 years. He's recently returned to the States." My mouth went dry. "Why?" "Revenge," Dante said quietly from behind me. "He's blaming your father for Salvador's arrest, and by extension, he's blaming you." "Me? I didn't do anything." "You were the catalyst," my father explained. "If Salvador hadn't been obsessed with acquiring you, hadn't made his move so publicly, the FBI wouldn't have had the opening they needed. Christian sees you as responsible for his brother's downfall." "That's insane." "That doesn't make it less dangerous," Dante said, his hand tightening on my shoulder. "Christian's already making moves. He's reached out to several families that are unhappy with your father's cooperation with the FBI. He's building a coalition." "Against us?" "Against all of us," my father corrected. "But you're his primary target, Alessia. He wants to hurt me where it matters most." I felt dizzy. "So what do we do?" "The FBI's offered to put you in witness protection," my father said. "New identity, new location, complete separation from this life." "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not." "Alessia." "No, Dad. I just got you and Mom back. I'm not disappearing again, especially not now when my voice broke, when she doesn't have much time left." My father's expression crumbled. "I know, sweetheart, but your safety." "I'll keep her safe," Dante interrupted. "There's another option." My father looked at him sharply. "Dante, hear me out. I have connections that the FBI doesn't. People in Europe who owe me favors. Let me reach out to them, find Christian before he finds us. Neutralize the threat at the source." "That's not your responsibility." "Yes, it is." Dante moved to stand beside my chair, and when I looked up at him, his expression was fierce. "Alessia is my responsibility, and I'm not sending her away. I won't lose her." The emotion in his voice made my chest tight. I stood and took his hand. "We'll figure this out together, all of us, but I'm not running and I'm not hiding. Not anymore." My father studied us for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, we do this your way, but Dante, if anything happens to her." "It won't," Dante said with absolute certainty. "I swear to you, Marcus, nothing will happen to her." The next few days were tense. Dante was on the phone constantly, reaching out to contacts across Europe, gathering intelligence on Christian Marchetti's movements and plans. Security around the estate tripled. I wasn't allowed to leave the property without a full detail, and even then, only for essential visits to see my mother at the hospital when her condition required specialized care. I tried to stay busy, tried not to let the fear consume me, but every shadow felt threatening, every unexpected noise made me jump. Dante noticed, of course. He always noticed. One evening, he found me in the library, staring unseeing at a book I'd been pretending to read for an hour. He took the book from my hands and pulled me to my feet. "Come with me," he said. "Where?" "You'll see." He led me out of the mansion, across the grounds to the guest house where he was staying. I'd never been inside before. Dante had been carefully maintaining boundaries, not wanting to push me or compromise me in my father's eyes. But now he guided me through the door and up the stairs to the master bedroom. The space was minimalist but comfortable, decorated in shades of gray and navy. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked. He crossed to the bed and sat down, then held out his hand to me. "Because you need to sleep, actually sleep, and you won't do that in the main house. Too many memories, too much anxiety. But here," he pulled me down beside him, "here I can keep watch, you can rest." "Dante, I can't just..." "Yes, you can. We're not doing anything improper. I'm just going to hold you while you sleep. That's all." The offer was so simple, so genuine, that I felt tears prick my eyes. I was exhausted, emotionally, physically, mentally drained. And the thought of sleeping in his arms, feeling safe even for a few hours, was overwhelming. "Okay," I whispered. He helped me out of my shoes, then pulled back the covers. We lay down together, and he wrapped his arms around me, pulling my back against his chest. His steady heartbeat against my spine was the most comforting thing I'd felt in weeks. "Sleep," he murmured into my hair. "I've got you." And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I did. I slept deeply, dreamlessly, safe in the knowledge that Dante Romano was watching over me. When I woke, pale morning light was filtering through the curtains. Dante was still wrapped around me, though I could tell from his breathing that he was awake. "How long have you been up?" I asked softly. "Couple hours. Didn't want to wake you." I turned in his arms to face him. His hair was mussed, his jaw shadowed with stubble, and he looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in days. "Thank you," I said, "for last night." "You don't have to thank me for taking care of you, Alessia. It's what I want to do, what I need to do." I reached up and traced my fingers along his jaw. He closed his eyes at the touch, a muscle working in his cheek. "Dante. I think I'm falling in love with you." His eyes snapped open, searching mine. "You think?" I shook my head slightly. "No, I know I love you." The expression that crossed his face was almost painful in its intensity, joy and fear, and something that looked like awe all mixed together. "Alessia," his voice was rough. "I've loved you since the moment you walked back into that house, maybe even before. I've just been too afraid to say it out loud, too afraid I'd curse us somehow." "You love me. More than anything in this world, more than my own life." I pulled him down and kissed him, and this time when he kissed me back, there was no hesitation, no holding back. This was a claiming, a promise, a vow. We stayed like that, wrapped in each other as the morning sun painted the room in gold, and for those precious moments, the threats lurking outside didn't exist. There was only us, only this, only the love we'd finally found the courage to name. The call came 2 days later, just after midnight. I was in Dante's bed again. We'd stopped pretending there was any point in me sleeping alone. I'd moved a few of my things into the guest house, and my father hadn't commented, though I suspected he knew. Dante's phone vibrated on the nightstand, and he was instantly alert, reaching for it before the second ring. I felt his body tense beside me as he answered. "Talk to me," he said quietly, his voice still rough with sleep. I couldn't hear the other person's words, but I watched Dante's expression harden in the darkness. His jaw clenched, his free hand curling into a fist against the sheets. "When?" A pause. "And you're certain it's him?" Another pause, longer this time. "All right, I'm on my way. Give me 20 minutes." He ended the call and sat up, already reaching for his clothes on the chair beside the bed. "What's happened?" I asked, sitting up as well. "That was my contact in New York. Christian Marchetti was spotted entering the city 3 hours ago. He's meeting with the Russo family tomorrow night." "The Russos? Why?" Dante pulled a black t-shirt over his head, his movements sharp and efficient. "Because they've had territory disputes with your father for years. If Christian can convince them to join his coalition, we'll have a serious problem. The Russos control most of the port operations from New York to Philadelphia. Combined with Christian's European connections and resources." He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. "What are you going to do?" He turned to look at me, and even in the dim light from the bedside lamp, I could see the conflict in his eyes. I need to go to New York. Tonight. Intercept Christian before that meeting happens. My stomach dropped. You're going after him. Not to kill him, if that's what you're thinking. But I need to send a message. Make it clear that coming after you, after your family, will cost him everything he has. Sometimes that's the only language men like Christian understand. I threw back the covers and stood, grabbing my own clothes. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Dante. No, Alesha. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. I'm taking a team of 5 men. We'll be in and out in under 4 hours. You'll be safer here, on the estate with your father's security. I don't want to be safe. I want to be with you. He crossed to me in 2 strides, cupping my face in his hands. And I want you nowhere near this. Please, baby. Please trust me to handle this. Stay here where I know you're protected, and I'll be back before sunrise. I promise. The endearment, baby, was new, and it made my heart squeeze painfully in my chest. I wanted to argue, to insist that I wouldn't be left behind. But looking into his eyes, seeing the genuine fear there, I knew I couldn't make this harder for him. Okay, I whispered, but you come back to me, you swear it. I swear. He kissed me, deep and urgent, like he was memorizing the taste of me. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you. No matter what happens, you need to know that. Nothing's going to happen. You said 4 hours. I know, but just in case, I love you, Alesha Valentino. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. 20 minutes later, I watched from the guest house window as Dante and 5 other men climbed into 2 black SUVs and disappeared down the long driveway. My chest felt tight with anxiety, but I forced myself to breathe, to trust him. 4 hours. He'd be back in 4 hours. I tried to go back to sleep, but it was impossible. Instead, I made coffee and sat in Dante's living room, wrapped in one of his sweatshirts that smelled like him, watching the clock tick slowly forward. 1 hour passed, then 2. At the 3-hour mark, my phone buzzed with a text from Dante, making contact now, everything on schedule, love you. I typed back immediately, be safe, love you too. The little checkmark appeared, showing he'd read it, then nothing. I waited for another message, another update, but my phone stayed silent. 3.5 hours, 4 hours, 4.5. By the time 5 hours had passed with no word, my anxiety had transformed into full-blown panic. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I called Dante's phone. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I called my father. Alesha, his voice was alert despite the early hour. What's wrong? It's Dante. He went to New York to deal with Christian Marchetti. He said he'd be back in 4 hours, but it's been 5 and I can't reach him and... Slow down. Start from the beginning. I explained everything. The call, the meeting with the Russos, Dante's plan. My father listened without interrupting, but I could hear his breathing grow heavier. Got him it, he muttered when I finished. He should have told me. I would have sent backup coordinated with... He stopped. Stay in the guest house. Lock the doors. I'm sending security to you now while I make some calls. Dad, what if something's happened to him? I'll find out. Just stay put and stay safe. That's what Dante would want. He ended the call, leaving me alone with my spiraling thoughts. I did as he'd instructed, locked the doors, checked the windows. Then I sat back down on the couch and waited, my phone clutched in my hand. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the windows. I jumped up, hope surging through me. But when I looked outside, it wasn't Dante's SUV. It was one of my father's security vehicles. 2 men climbed out, Antonio and Marco, both members of my father's personal detail. They approached the door, and I unlocked it to let them in. Miss Valentino, Antonio said with a nod. Your father wanted us to stay with you until he has more information. Have you heard anything about Dante? The look they exchanged made my blood run cold. What? I demanded. What do you know? Marco cleared his throat. There was an incident at the warehouse where the meeting was supposed to take place. NYPD responded to reports of gunfire about an hour ago. The room tilted, and we don't have details yet, but your father's contacts in the department are trying to get information. As soon as we know something, you'll know. I sank back onto the couch, my legs unable to support me. Gunfire. There'd been gunfire, and Dante wasn't answering his phone. The next hour was the longest of my life. I couldn't sit still, couldn't think straight. I paced the living room while Antonio and Marco tried to look professional and unconcerned, but I could see the tension in their shoulders. Finally, my phone rang. My father. "Dad," I answered on the first ring. "There was a shootout," he said without preamble. "Christian had more men than Dante anticipated. It turned into a bloodbath. 3 of Dante's team are dead, one's critical and one's missing." "And Dante," my voice came out as barely a whisper. "He's alive. He's been shot twice, but he's alive. They've taken him to Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. He's in surgery now." Relief and terror warred inside me. I need to go to him. "Alessia, I need to go to him, Dad, right now." He sighed. "I'm sending the helicopter. Antonio and Marco will escort you. But Alessia, you need to prepare yourself. The doctors aren't sure." His voice cracked slightly. "They're not sure he's going to make it." The words hit me like a physical blow. No, he's going to be fine. He has to be fine. He promised me." "I know, sweetheart, I know. The helicopter will be there in 10 minutes. Go to him." The flight to Manhattan was a blur. I barely registered the city lights below us, the skyline coming into view. All I could think about was Dante lying on an operating table, fighting for his life. When we landed on the hospital's rooftop helipad, my father was waiting. He looked haggard, older than I'd ever seen him, with dark circles under his eyes and his shirt partially untucked. "Any news?" I asked as I climbed out. "Still in surgery. Come on." He led me down through the hospital to a private waiting area on the surgical floor. Several of my father's men were already there, along with one of Dante's team members, a man named Luca who had blood spattered on his shirt and a bandage wrapped around his arm. "What happened?" I asked him. Luca looked up, his eyes hollow. "It was a setup. Christian knew we were coming. He had twice the men we expected, and they were ready for us. We walked right into it." His voice broke. "Dante took 2 bullets meant for me. He pushed me out of the way, and he couldn't finish." I sank into a chair, my hands shaking. My father sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "He's strong," my father said quietly. "If anyone can survive this, it's Dante." We waited and waited. Hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Nurses came and went, but no one had information, just that he was still in surgery, still fighting. Dawn broke over the city, pale light filtering through the waiting room windows. I couldn't cry, couldn't feel anything except a hollow numbness spreading through my chest. At 7:30, a surgeon finally emerged, still in his scrubs. His expression was carefully neutral, impossible to read. "Family of Dante Romano." My father and I both stood. "How is he?" my father asked. The surgeon pulled off his surgical cap, and I saw fatigue etched deep in his face. "He made it through surgery. We were able to remove both bullets and repair the damage, but he's lost a significant amount of blood, and the next 24 hours will be critical. He's not out of the woods yet." "But he's alive," I said, my voice barely audible. "He's alive, barely. He's in the ICU now. Only immediate family can visit, and only one at a time." My father looked at me. "Go, you should be the first person he sees when he wakes up." The surgeon hesitated. "Are you his wife?" "She will be," my father said firmly before I could respond. "Let her see him." The surgeon nodded slowly. "Follow me." He led me through a maze of corridors to the ICU. The unit was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors and the soft whoosh of ventilators. He stopped outside a room with glass walls. "He's sedated," the surgeon explained. "We're keeping him in a medically induced coma for now to let his body heal. But you can talk to him. Sometimes patients can hear even when they're under." I nodded. not trusting my voice, and pushed open the door. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight of Dante lying in that hospital bed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the tubes and wires connected to his body. His face was pale, almost gray, with dark shadows under his eyes. Bandages covered his chest and shoulder. I pulled a chair close to his bedside and took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. His skin was cool to the touch. "Hey," I whispered, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "You promised me you'd come back. You promised, Dante." The only response was the steady beep of his heart monitor. "I know you probably can't hear me, but I need you to fight. I need you to come back to me. We're supposed to have a life together, remember? You said you wanted something normal. A home. A family. I want that too. With you. Only you." I stayed there for an hour, talking to him, telling him about the helicopter ride, about how terrified I'd been, about how much I loved him. Eventually, a nurse came and told me I needed to give him some rest. I kissed his forehead gently. "I'll be back soon. I love you." When I returned to the waiting room, my father immediately stood. "How is he?" "Alive. That's all I know right now." He pulled me into a hug, and I finally let myself break down, sobbing into his chest like I was a little girl again. "He'll make it," my father murmured. "Dante's a fighter. He won't leave you." But even as he said it, I couldn't shake the cold dread settling in my stomach. Because Dante wasn't the only thing I had to worry about. Somewhere out there, Christian Marchetti was still free, still dangerous, and still determined to destroy everything I loved. And now he knew exactly how to hurt me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands and looked at the screen. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello." "Alessia Valentino." The voice was smooth, cultured, with a faint Italian accent. "My name is Christian Marchetti. I believe we have some things to discuss." My blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Justice for my brother. Your boyfriend survived tonight, but he won't be so lucky next time. Neither will you. If you come near him again." "You'll what?" He laughed softly. "You're in no position to make threats, Tesoro, but I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to make you an offer." "I don't want anything from you. Not even Dante's life, because I can make this very simple. You give yourself to me willingly, publicly, and I'll leave your family alone. Dante recovers, your father continues his cooperation with the FBI, and everyone lives. Refuse, and I'll systematically destroy everything and everyone you've ever cared about." My father was watching me now, his expression alarmed. "Alessia, who is it?" I couldn't answer him. I couldn't breathe. "You have 48 hours to decide," Christian continued. "After that, all bets are off. Choose wisely, Alessia. Some sacrifices are worth making." The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, as the full weight of his words crashed over me. Christian Marchetti had just given me an impossible choice. My life for Dante's. My freedom for my family's safety. And I had 48 hours to decide which sacrifice I was willing to make. Drop a comment if you want to see what happens next, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.